Superman.
Miss Lane.
People on social media are suspicious because you are an alien, yes?
Yes.
So in effect, you illegally entered a country, inserting yourself in the middle of an incredibly
Hold on a
heated
minute.
geopolitical
Hold on a
situation.
second.
Yeah, I would question myself in the same situation and hold off a beat and consider the consequences.
People were going to die!
Everyone and their mother has made a Superman video at this point. Some prefer Gunn's Superman, others prefer Snyder's Man of Steel, and since I am a fence-sitter on that issue, some of us like both, I decided to sit that conversation out. I may have waited a little too long to make this video, but it doesn't matter. I wanted to approach reviewing this film from a different angle, and I couldn't be careless about what I'm going to say. So it took me a lot longer to prepare this video, but I believe it's worth the wait. Because let's forget the fan wars of Snyder versus Gunn for a second. I wanted to talk about why this film matters. Because behind the cape, the goofy villains, the colorful tone, and the hopeful message, Superman held up a mirror to the real world. What this movie had to say touched a lot of nerves and opened doors to conversations that were otherwise shunned. Fans online and offline, reviewers, political commentators, elected officials couldn't deny the uncomfortable truth that Superman showed in its fictional comparisons. A world where the citizens of Gaza are starving under the boot of a genocide. A world where the atrocities in Congo went unheard. A world where ICE raids and anti-immigrant sentiment is on the rise. A world where bots control the narrative on social media. It's a lot, I know, but we're gonna talk about every single point Superman has raised, so let's get into it. Before we get into the meat of this video, I just wanted to praise this film from a storytelling standpoint. So there's gonna be some spoilers, you have been warned, and also, because the movie hasn't been released on streaming yet, some of the clips I acquired of this movie from TikTok, Reddit, Twitter, the quality is straight up ass, so I'm sorry in advance. First off, can we talk about how freaking good this movie is? I did a reaction to Richard Donner's Superman 1 and 2. You can watch them on my channel, by the way. This reminded me of Christopher Reeve's iconic, optimistic, colorful Superman. The creators of the new Superman really understood what the character is all about. With Batman, he's about punishing evil. With Superman, he is all about saving lives, even if that life is a squirrel or a cat.
I always tell him not to.
Oh, hold on now. Let's not be too hard on Frisky, okay?
The other characters and the humor of this film doesn't take away from the overall story. In fact, it adds more to the fun. Even the silly plot point of an average guy like Jimmy Olsen being irresistible to women, when you have a literal Greek god in glasses next to him, will never not be funny. You also won't have to squint your eyes or adjust your TV this time. This movie is as colorful as they come. Thank goodness. This movie also has your signature directorial style of James Gunn, whether it be the spinning action set pieces, the 80s music, the wide-angle shots, and even some elements that are classic Superman comic book fodder, like your over-the-top goons, cheesy one-liners.
What the hey, dude? I thought...
And so much hope that you end up smiling ear to ear as the end montage of Clark Kent's parents rolls out. Also, how can I possibly forget Krypto the Superdog? Holy shit. Krypto made his first appearance in the Adventure Comics 210 in 1955, and in a few animated films and TV shows, but this movie really gives him his time to shine. They don't treat him like a cute dog sidekick. He is a menace. If Superman can save the world, Krypto can straight up destroy it if he ever thought Earth was a chew toy. But beyond the spectacle, the optimism, and the psychotic dog, Gunn and his team also brought something else that the originators of the Superman comics intended in the first place. They brought back why Superman was created and what he always stood for. What is it, you might ask? If you've been following the online conversation surrounding Superman, you might have heard this phrase, Superman is about Gaza. Most people are pointing out that the major plot point in the film hints at the ongoing genocide and starvation of the Palestinian population. Why are people saying this? In the film, the heavily armed nation of Moravia, led by President Vasil Gurkos, tries to invade its neighboring defenseless country Jaranpur, only to be stopped by Superman, who intervenes by sticking President Gurkos on a cactus. It's a pretty sweet diplomacy tactic, but others in the film don't think so. Some citizens tell it to his face that he shouldn't have intervened in a geopolitical conflict.
Maybe you shouldn't have done that thing in Jarham Superman.
And even gets grilled by his girlfriend, Lois Lane, whose questions lead him to exclaim,
People were going to die!
Yep, it's that simple. He uses no moral gymnastics, no politics, and you don't have to be a 5-head super genius to understand where Superman is coming from. Human lives were at risk, and Superman wasn't just going to sit around and do nothing. Now, where does Palestine come into this equation? Well, from what I've seen regarding the discourse online, Palestine is actually not the only comparison that was made with the main conflict in Superman. Some have said that the Boravia versus Jaharnpur conflict is about Russia versus Ukraine. Some say it's about Congo. Here's where I disagree, and where I think that the comparison with the Gaza situation makes more sense. The main reason for the Russia-Boravia comparison is because the president, Vasil Gurkos, has more of a Russian demeanor about him. While that is true, people also pointed out something very interesting. This is David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, whose face and hair not only resembles the fictional Boravian president, but Ben-Gurion was also raised in Russia-controlled Poland and was deeply influenced by socialist ideology and revolutionaries like Lenin. Coincidence? Jaharnpur also cannot be compared with Ukraine because currently there is an estimated 2.2 million Ukrainian armed forces with over 900,000 on active duty to fight against the Russians. That is not how Jaharnpur was portrayed. Ukraine is also a majority white country, whereas Jaharnpur seems like a predominantly brown country, which is where the Congo comparison comes from. But even then, Congo's major conflict is with the group M23, which is rumored to be backed by Rwanda, also a majority brown country. So that leaves us with only one comparison, and before you think that I'm wrong, this is what the fictional Boravian president had to say.
The relationship between Boravia and United States has been like iron for 30 years.
That does not sound like Congo and the United States, and definitely not Russia and US. So why did Superman take such a bold and controversial stance? Why is it so important right now to talk about Israel versus Palestine? Because James Gunn didn't just reboot Superman, he put him on the right side of history, because Gaza isn't fiction. The situation in Gaza right now is not just dire, it's apocalyptic. The genocide in Gaza has reached its 11th hour, which means people are starving to death at an alarming rate. The pictures and videos that have come out of Gaza at this point are harrowing, with kids and adults turning into bones in front of us, Gaza having the most child amputees than any other place in the world, people risking their lives over a sack of flour, only to return with nothing in their hands and sometimes even losing family members over food. The situation in Gaza has become so desperate that people have been risking their lives trying to get to aid distribution centers, and in this bottleneck that's been created, they have been shot and killed daily.
Palestinians are funneled through what has been described as metal caged alleys, leading to distribution points.
Numbers so astonishing that if I had to make a video on how many people actually died because of this man-made starvation and because of lack of medicine or even baby formula, I'd have to make a video every single day because the reported number just keeps increasing. There's over 2 million people in Gaza right now, and they can't leave because the border is sealed around them, making it an open-air prison. And food trucks are often stopped at the border, sometimes by the IDF and sometimes even by civilians. And tons of food and medicine just sit idly at warehouses, unable to reach Gaza. People inside Gaza were even warned not to go fishing or they would be shot.
Once a lifeline for this community, the boats and their crews risk death if they venture beyond the shallows.
This order was reverted only recently because of global pushback. Despite this global pushback, experts fear that this mass starvation has reached its final stages there, which may mean that we are about to witness the Holocaust again. And some people are also rightfully afraid of old horrors returning in dire situations, like the late imperial famine in Russia or the arduous march in North Korea, where people may even have to resort to cannibalism and necrophagia just to survive. This has gone far beyond the justification of the attack on October 7, 2023. Hamas terrorists had killed around 1,200 people, kidnapped 251 people, and held them hostage, but as a result, Israel's military bombed bombing Gaza non-stop to the point where the entire city has been flattened is unjustifiable as a response to the 2023 attack. Since October 2023, there has been a reported death toll of 60,000 people in Gaza, 18,000 of them being children, but a lot more are suspected to still be under the rubble. And experts fear that the number may be a lot bigger due to the underreporting of deaths caused by starvation, trauma-related deaths like bullet wounds, disease, the collapse of the medical system, and experts fear that this number is going to significantly increase if this genocide isn't put to an end. More and more reports of bullets being found in kids' heads, necks, testicles have come out by doctors themselves.
Israeli snipers were killing small children directly by shooting them in head or chest.
And so many images, videos, and reports from officials have come out from what is being called the most live-streamed Holocaust of our lives. So much so that even Donald Trump had to call a spade a spade.
I mean, some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that.
And even Israeli human rights organizations had to admit that this is a genocide.
Two leading human rights organizations, B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights Israel, say the government is committing genocide in Gaza.
This conversation is important because mainstream media has failed to bring this to your attention. Some of you are well aware, but I imagine the rest of you haven't even seen the extent of this inhumane barbarism. Shrapnel in kids' heads. Kids coming to the morgue charred beyond recognition. So if mainstream media won't get the ball rolling on making people aware of a genocide, it's up to mainstream art to take up this mantle, which Superman exactly did. What's surprising is that this film also opened people's eyes to other atrocities, like in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a militant group known as M23 have taken over eastern DRC, killing over 7,000 people and displacing around 7 million people in the region alone. Reports of rampant sexual violence, forced recruitment of children, medical facilities being attacked, diseases like cholera and malnutrition have run rampant across eastern DRC. Aid warehouses have been looted and government displacement camps have been dismantled, leaving the starving population with the only option of fleeing on foot, and protests have turned violent in the streets. This conflict is also not new. Just like Gaza, the DRC has been in conflict with neighboring countries like Rwanda since the 1990s, ever since the Rwandan genocide. But now, the scale of violence is indefensible. Unfortunately, though, people's eyes have fallen more on the plight of the Palestinians and also of the people of Ukraine, so the plight of the citizens of Congo are left unheard. But this film, thankfully, has sparked a threefold discussion that's been long overdue, mostly among film fans, online commentators, and nerds like me, who otherwise would have never engaged with such conversations, are starting to tune in. This movie made an excellent comparison with Lex Luthor's interests in Jaranpur, where at first it was kind of funny that he wanted to open a donut shop on his side of Jaranpur.
Oh, my God.
Right? Yeah. Been thinking of opening one in my half of Jaranpur.
But later it is revealed that he not only wants the land, but also what's underneath the land, which is tons of petroleum deposits.
Why the hell would Lex want half a desert?
I mean, the petroleum deposits alone are worth multiples of his investment.
Israel's genocide on Gaza, or M23's attack on Congo, can be justified by many governments as a means of getting justice or righting the wrongs of the past. But it's obvious what the people in power really want. With Congo, it seems to be natural resources. Congo is the largest reserve for coltan, gold, tin, cassiterite, and cobalt. With Gaza, it seems to be, you guessed it, land. Strip away the politics and you'll find a familiar culprit at the center of all of it. Capital. Now, all of these heavy topics could make people say, I don't want politics in my Superman movie. Comic book movies are supposed to be light. See, that's where you'd be wrong. Superman has always been political. Its creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, were both sons of Jewish immigrants who had fled to the US because of the pogroms. In the US in the 1930s, they faced countless acts of anti-Semitism, and the creation of Superman as a character who is a beacon of hope and saves people despite who they are was born out of a need during one of the most turbulent times in history. World War II gave birth to Superman, and those who carried him forward, namely Jack Kirby, Bob Kane, Stan Lee, Bill Finger, or even Mark Millar, were themselves shaped by leftist politics and who pushed the message that Superman's core principle is humanity's survival above all else. This is also not the first time comic books have stitched politics into their stories. Xavier and Magneto have been compared to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X many times. In the movie Iron Man, his entire stance was to halt arms supply to terrorists. Captain America punched Hitler in the face in the cover photo. There is no better character to talk about today's geopolitical mess than Superman, who has always been humanity first, politics last. It is also important to note that people's aversion to talking about the genocide is not just out of apathy, but also genuine fear that is actually valid. Most people actually do care, but the fear that some of them had about openly talking about the genocide in Gaza wasn't born out of nothing. Just recently, Mahmoud Khalil was arrested for speaking out against the atrocities in Gaza, and a Turkish student named Rumeysa Oster from Tufts University was kidnapped in broad daylight by 6 masked ICE officers in plainclothes, presumably for writing an op-ed calling for her university to acknowledge the Palestinian genocide. Thankfully, both of them have been released, but all of these incidents have led to a vacuum of fear that most people understandably did not want to touch for the longest time. But recently, as countries are officially starting to recognize the state of Palestine, as more and more people are being vocal about Gaza's starvation, and as Superman shone the biggest spotlight on what's happening in Gaza, it gives people the courage to speak openly about this crime against humanity without fear of being jailed or deported, which brings me to my next point, the other topic that Superman shone a bright light on. In the movie, Lex capitalizes on the fact that Superman is an alien and lives in America possibly illegally, which Superman stresses on that he has addressed countless times, that he is just as American and as human as the rest of them. But Lex made it his mission to spread more and more negative propaganda through his misinformation monkeys, a scene that I have not been able to get out of my head.
Just my monkey bots here farming outrage 24/7, trashing you online.
#super shit.
That Superman has a secret harem of women, that he wants to spread his genes and erase the natural humans with his genetically superior children, targeting back to real-life nonsense that we see on the internet about immigrants, talking points like the Great Replacement Theory and other stuff. The funny part is, Superman has always been harassed about his status as a US citizen. From Dean Cain's Superman being harassed during an interview,
"We just need a quick look at your green card."
Green card.
You are an alien, are you not?
to Smallville's Clark Kent taking a bold stance against his town's anti-immigration sentiment.
I'm an illegal immigrant, Mom. You've been harboring me for over 17 years.
So no, this sentiment is not unique for just this film. This sentiment is important because remember when I talked about activists being kidnapped off the streets? It wasn't just pro-Palestine activists. People have been recently arrested by ICE, no matter what their immigration status is, sometimes even making mistakes with these arrests.
A mistaken traffic stop landed a teenage girl in ICE custody. She's facing possible deportation. And it has some in her ruby red community of Dalton, Georgia, rethinking their politics on the issue.
And more videos are propping up of people being arrested in courtrooms or even in front of their homes. This has gotten so bad that neighborhoods have started taking matters into their own hands just to keep people safe, and large-scale protests have come out against these drastic measures. But there's also one element that Superman touched upon that is equally as important but isn't being talked about. Remember the non-stop propaganda spreading monkeys? Well, the movie is spot on about a growing problem, the problem of online bots. The rise of 24/7 misinformation spreading, rage-baiting bot accounts have flooded social media spaces, creating online and offline consequences for people. I too encountered a bot like this on Twitter, and when I went to their account, there was nothing. No profile picture, no bio, just non-stop racist, pro-genocidal propaganda posted every 30 seconds. And people were engaging with it too, arguing with someone that doesn't exist. This brings forth a far more terrifying consequence than people realize. Because of the ongoing genocide in Gaza, it has given a sharp rise to anti-Semitism online, mostly fueled by bots and rage baiters. It has also emboldened people who have harbored anti-Semitic beliefs from the start. And because people who were being vocal about being against this genocide were being silenced, it's allowed these misinformation bots to push forward more insane hate speech that conflates being Jewish with the acts of the IDF. You may think that I'm exaggerating about how big this issue may get, but I've seen firsthand how much damage these type of monkey bot farms can do to people online and offline. There has always been a rampant problem of Islamophobia ever since 9/11, and recently a rise in anti-Indian racism has caused people who have liberal in their bio to become very casual online with anti-Indian sentiment. You'll see it everywhere. Even the mere mention of an Indian person or an Indian news online will have people throwing the most casual and blatant form of anti-Indian racism, like they were making making black people jokes in the 1930s. If this monkey bot farm problem isn't nipped in the bud by social media companies as soon as possible, I fear that this genocide and the subsequent discourse that has come out of it might do tremendous harm to Jewish people in the coming years. After 9/11, Islamophobia became so rampant that those sentiments still echo to this day, where the actions of small groups like Al-Qaeda or ISIS are still associated with billions of Muslims around the world. The same problem can occur where the actions of the IDF could be associated with the millions of Jewish people across the globe. Coming back to the main message of Superman, before anybody attacks this film as being too woke for the movie-going audience, this is actually not the first time a film has become a metaphor for the real-life death and destruction in war. The most famous example? 1954's Godzilla. That was the perfect metaphor for the atomic bomb that decimated Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The movie, just like Gunn's Superman, never outright admits it, but I'm sure that the aftermath and the terror that was left behind by those two atomic bombs rippled through the Japanese theater crowd in the 1950s. Even the remakes are not shy about making this comparison. Whether you agree with the film's messaging or not, a famous franchise like DC's talking about something so important is exactly what was needed at this crucial stage. People like Miss Rachel, a famous children's entertainer, had recently become a vocal platformer and activist for the children of Gaza who had lost their limbs in this genocide. She gave them a platform when mainstream news didn't even bother. Not just her, but many celebrities and creators have come out for their support for the Palestinians, giving regular people the courage to not be silent. This video is the perfect example. I've tuned into this news of the constant bombing of Gaza since last year, and I wanted to talk about it, but I knew that my movie-loving audience would find this subject too heavy. But Superman allowed me the perfect segue to open up this conversation, because enough movie fans are also talking about this online. There's one important factor about the Jaharanpur plot point in Superman that not everyone is talking about. Superman did not save Jaharanpur. If you remember in the film, Superman was held back by Lex Luthor and his henchmen in Metropolis, where he opened up a literal black hole that would have swallowed the Earth if Superman didn't intervene. Typical billionaire CEOs type stuff. Right at that moment, the news was blasting about the invasion of Jaharanpur by Boravia, and everyone, including the Green Lantern, Metamorpho, Hawkgirl, were tuned in. These people had once claimed that they had nothing to do with geopolitics, but because of what Superman had stood for, because he risked his life and turned himself in order to save these people from being invaded, it wasn't Superman who came to Jaharanpur's rescue. It was the people he inspired.
Sorry, kid. Superman couldn't make it, so you got an upgrade.
Maybe this scene is trying to tell us something, that maybe we don't have to be Superman to save Palestine. In fact, there is no Superman that can come to the rescue of the remaining starving citizens of Gaza. Maybe it's us, the regular human beings of the world, to collectively come together and make enough noise to educate the masses who are asleep to this, to make everyone aware that the Holocaust is happening once again.
From Barcelona to Athens, Mexico City to Rio de Janeiro.
Maybe then, with international pressure, we might actually make a difference. Because think about it, if 8 billion of us get our voices back, how many can they silence? This new Superman, I believe, is not going to be important for the adults. In fact, I don't even think this movie was made for people like me who are very well aware of what's happening in the world. This Superman is going to be important for the 12-year-old boy, for the 12-year-old girl who are going to be the men and women of tomorrow, who need a better role model than the ones we have in the real world. Superman has always been a character that kids can look up to, and with a brilliant message like kindness being the new counterculture, when cynicism, sarcasm, and nihilism is the current culture that's supposed to be cool, saving people regardless of who they are, being kind regardless of what their ethnicity or race is, and growing up with a strong moral compass of what's right and wrong, hey, maybe that is the new punk rock. Videos like these are possible because of people like you. These kinds of videos often get demonetized because of their tough subject matter, but your support on Patreon helps keeps this channel going. So consider supporting or leaving a small donation on Buy Me a Coffee or even on YouTube. And also on Patreon, I post full-length movie reactions of your favorite movies.
That's not a knife. This is a knife.
Thank you so much for watching to the very end of this video. I hope you enjoyed and I hope I didn't waste your time. See you next video.